What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about Cha-Ching! Along the Razor's Edge by Rob J. Hayes. This is book number 1 in the War Eternal trilogy. Earlier this year I read Never Die by Rob J. Hayes, so I went out and I bought the trilogy because I was interested in reading some more of his work. And after finishing this bad boy, I'm ready for more. Let's get into it. The story is about Askera Helson, who is a young sorceress in the middle of a great war. Now, Askera has been betrayed by the one person that she trusts and loves, and this leaves her without her magic. She's been stripped of her powers, and she gets thrown in prison. Well, it's what's deemed the pit. Now, the pit is a place where nobody gets out of. Once you're in, and your fate is pretty much sealed. So from here, we will have to watch Askera basically dig into life in the pit, and throughout this is where we get to kind of see what living in the pit is like. There are arena matches to the death, gambling, and just all kinds of, low life living, as well as just this very trivial and just seems like pointless tasks of mining, and it seems like they're just digging holes to nowhere. After a conversation with a madman, Askera is filled with a new sense of hope, one that will see her out of this pit, one where she can wreak havoc and revenge on her enemies. And so she sets to it. And so basically what plays out for here is where we'll see Askera have to kind of forge new relationships, maybe ones that she doesn't want to, as well as we'll watch her relationship with the one person that she loves kind of, go on the rocks. Like the one person that she could always trust, she can no longer trust. So she now has to put faith in new faces, and I mean, it's a dangerous gamble. The story is told on 2 different timelines, and it's also narrated by the main character, Askera. So we have the timeline that she's telling us. It's basically her version of her coming-of-age story, which is going to the pit. And as well, we will have flashbacks to her time at the academy, which really will fill in the gaps of the magic system, as well as just a little bits and pieces of insight and information about our main character. So one of the first things I really want to dive into are the choices that Rob J. Hayes made as far as having a book with a young protagonist, or even, so to speak, coming-of-age tale. Because this was a very mature book, but it has those things that are very easy to get tripped up in. This year, I have read just an intense amount of books with young protagonists or coming-of-age tales. I don't know why, but for some reason this year, I've read a lot. But I do think that Rob J. Hayes went in the right direction where a lot of those guys went the wrong one. Let me try to break this down. So first thing he did is he makes the main character the narrator. So she's not just the narrator. She's obviously narrating this story from a much older age. So this gives us massive amounts of, self-reflection as well as perspective to all the ridiculous things that maybe a young person will do that just seem ridiculous to an adult reader. But with this insight, this perspective, all the ridiculous dumb shit she does makes sense. Another really smart decision to make this thing have that more mature tone was Rob J. Hayes choosing for, to have Askera tell the reader that, hey, my story starts in the pit. That yes, I grew up in an academy, you know what I mean? But by just kind of denying that part of the story right out the gate and saying, no, this is where I grew up. That's huge. That kills off a lot of those easy trip ups that you can have by starting your story in this academy trope, right? This setup, right? So now we're starting the story in the pit, but this allows us to take flashbacks into the past, into the academy, without it feeling childish, without it feeling kiddie. And then honestly, the academy in this book isn't very childish either. These are it's much more a place where they weaponize children, and these children often try to kill each other in this academy. The next thing I really want to dive into is the magic system in the book, because this is something I really liked. I don't think that we get all of the information here in book 1, but we get enough. Through these flashback sequences, through the little trips to the academy, academy, we learn a lot about this magic system. And it definitely, it's mostly about, like, you know, different forms of mancy, you know, and the way that they can control, or I guess cast this magic, is each one of these sorcerers has to, like, attune themselves to a source and then ingest this source. And not every sorcerer can attune to every source. But this is kind of where we find out that our main character is kind of a magical badass, since she can attune herself to like 6 or 7 of the 10 sources, that's a lot, really. So yes, the magic system, it's still a little bit mysterious, but it's also kind of fleshed out well too. And this whole concept of having to swallow these sources, and that you can't keep them inside you, that they have to swallow this other stuff to basically vomit up their sources every night, because they can't sleep with them in. It's just, there's a lot of cool stuff tied into this magic system, and I'm definitely excited to see where it goes in book 2. Now, kind of just segueing off of that into characters, I will say this: the main character, Ascara, she steals the show. Obviously, she's our narrator, so it's, you know, completely from her perspective. We're relying heavily on her. But I will say, just, you know, it feels like every other character in this book does take a back seat to her. I didn't actually mind this so much, though, because I absolutely loved Ascara. I really liked this main character. And like I said, it might have been some of those choices that Rob J. Hayes made that just, you know, from the get-go, yes, this was a young protagonist, but it was a young protagonist that I was enjoying, you know? She might be a little prickly for some, you know what I mean? Where I love her, there are surely going to be maybe some that don't. Just because, you know, Ascara is a bitch. She's not heartless, but she's not nice. This is a powerful woman that's obviously done plenty of wrong. But it's kind of nice because, like I said, you get like these honest perspectives from her when she's telling you the story. She's not afraid to tell you that she was naive, that when she thought she was in love, it was really lust, that she was being stupid, you know, or weak or whatever. It's just kind of, it's intensely refreshing to have this kind of perspective from this like super capable woman that's like, you know, she's not a nice chick, but she's awesome to follow and read, in my opinion. One of the criticisms I've seen about the book was kind of about the plot, or maybe just kind of a little bit of the lack of plot, and that the book is just purely setup. I would disagree with that. I would say that this book is definitely a setup novel for the trilogy, but I feel like it has a good chunk of plot. It has its own plot, because this is not really going to carry out throughout the trilogy. This book is about the pit, and it's really about getting to know Ascara. And once again, I'm not going to hold, because we go back and forth, I could see where people are like, oh, there's a lack of plot because half of the book you're spending in the past in the academy. But like I said, because of the decisions he made to set it up this way, it gave me this much more mature tone. So I'm not going to come back later and like penalize him because of like the plot, because he didn't make it an academy story into the war, into the pit kind of thing. That isn't necessary in my eyes. So there was plenty of plot in this book. It's a trilogy, so don't be like expecting this massively epic scale and scope in book 1. It's not there. This is truly getting to know our main character, as well as the magic system and the rest in parts of this world. So it's really easy to see that I loved this book. I can't wait to get into the rest of this trilogy. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to get into it this soon. I was gonna just wait till next year to start the whole thing. But man, I'm excited now. Whoo-wee. But my 2 cents, all right? Yes, my 2 cents for the slow and the struggling. This is definitely an easy book to get into for you guys. I think that Rob J. Hayes really, like, he does a great job of keeping his writing like nice and tight. Like, it's confined. That doesn't mean that it's just lacking of all description. No, that's not it at all. I'm just saying he can bring you all this crazy shit, but then also keep you on the straight and narrow. I noticed that in Never Die, and I noticed that in this book, and it's something that I really enjoy about his writing. He can kind of bring you to that point almost to where you're about to get overwhelmed, and it just smooths out the ride for you, where it's just so much fun. The pacing is just great, right up your alley. So if this kind of story, really the only thing I would have you ask yourself is like, do you want to read a story about a kick-ass magical young female protagonist who has been betrayed and has to fucking find her way through the pit? You know what I mean? A girl that's seeking revenge. You know, if that sounds like your kind of story, then by all means pick up this book. Now, as always, thanks for spending some time down here at the channel. And to Rob J. Hayes, a gadoosh, brother. This kicks ass, dude. I seriously just love Ascara so much, man. Probably one of my new favorite female main characters, for sure. Can't wait to tear into the rest of this series. Also, I want to give a shout out to Felix Ortiz, who is the cover artist of this. I forgot to shout him out for the Blackstone Heart cover, because I really like that cover as well. So, props where props are due. Felix, you're a fucking stud. Way to go. All right. Thanks for spending some time here, guys. I gotta go. If you're new, please like and subscribe. It helps me grow the channel. All right. As always, peace.